Hello, my name is Tammi. I am a Colorado real estate agent, realtor, and healthy home advocate. I have a mold story, and I'm a toxic mold survivor. I've been inspired to create a space where my community of fellow survivors and those who are currently navigating the journey can come share their stories without the story and lessons being tied to a product or a service that you, the observer, have to invest in order to learn from or contribute to. I'm here to create a platform where people can be heard, where the stories that are often heartbreaking, overwhelming, and honestly very scary can be held, where you, the audience, can hear unedited, unfiltered, real stories of real people from all over the nation who are combating the toxins, natural and unnatural, in our environment. You'll hear about their journey and where they are today. So thank you so much for joining us. And I ask you to listen deeply with an open heart, understanding that this isn't meant to be prescriptive. It's not about right or wrong. Rather, it's an invitation. Come learn. And when we know better, we can do better. Today is story number 2, and I have a very special, respected educator and mentor in the mold industry, Andi. Andi works with Respirare Labs, correct me if I'm wrong, okay, and owner of Align Mold Consulting.
You got it.
Andi has her story with mold, and that's what we're here for today. So without further ado, let's begin. Hi, Andi.
Hi, Tammy. Tammy, first off, thank you for creating this platform and for allowing a space for us to tell our stories, which is so important. And also, thank you for being a holistic realtor. Realtors are so often the first line of defense between a family and a sick home. And so it's so much needed. And so thank you for the work you're doing.
Thank you so much for saying that, Andi. It means so much to me. It's a privilege to get to share this space with you. I'm honored and I'm excited for getting to hear your story and getting this out into the world so that people can hear and experience secondhand, right, what this journey has been like for you. Would you mind starting sharing with us a little bit about who you are now?
Yeah. Yes. I'm Andy, it's short for Andrea, and I'm located up here in the frozen Minnesota North. And my space in the industry is a little unique. My education's in the sciences. I was once pre-med, and I was a biology and chemistry major. I really love the sciences. That's my strong suit. And so I look at myself as an advocate and an educator. And I specifically really love to dig into environmental tests. I like objective-based testing, appropriate allocation of resources, and really digging into the finer details. Ironically, I'm also a mycology enthusiast. So my love for fungi was present long before I came into this industry. So the segue into the mold world and mycotoxins was an appropriate one. Um, but I own a consulting firm, which is Align Mold Consulting, and I don't have all the answers. Sometimes I just act as a sounding board, helping my clients take a step forward, giving them support. I do many different things for the people I work with. And then the work that I'm really excited about is the work that I'm doing with Respirare Labs. We offer mycotoxin air and surface testing, and we are working to change the landscape of mold remediation. Right now, we're remediating, with spores and microbial growth in mind, and we really need to be remediating with mycotoxins in mind. So we are working to change the landscape, to change the way we measure success by changing the metrics by which we measure that success. So very, very proud to be with that team. But I just like to I continue to learn and surround myself by so many amazing professionals from many different walks of lives, and just I'm trying to soak up everything I can from these incredible people. So
That sounds amazing. Thank you
it's
for all your hard work. You're doing so
thank
many
you.
great things. I've caught your videos here and there coming up, and it's just you're so knowledgeable
I
and your
appreciate you
science.
listening to those.
Oh gosh. the science background behind it, it's like, wow, you just really dig in and it's really cool. It's just amazing to
That's
learn that.
my love language and also was my coping mechanism during my hardest days. And so I'll be able to explain that when I get into my story. But yes, I love the science. You'll often see me on the weekends with a scientific article or a textbook. We do ice fishing up here in Minnesota, and I've been known to bring my articles and textbooks into the ice fishing shack, which my husband allows. So,
As long as you're not talking so that it
oh
distracts
yeah, no,
the
I
fish.
love to fish too. So it's
Well,
just,
that's cool. That's awesome.
yeah.
Let's talk about your mold story. Where does it begin?
Excuse me. So
Mm.
my story begins back in 2017. I met my husband when I was a full-time pre-med student working three jobs. And I was already a single mom. And so we began our family really quickly because I wanted to go on to graduate school. So we were both starting over and we didn't have anything. So we were renting a home in the cities and building our family, saving our pennies and preparing to buy a home. We weren't financially ready yet. Unfortunately, my 2-year-old daughter contracted lead poisoning from the rental home. She wasn't symptomatic, but we caught it. She was chewing on a windowsill, and so we caught it, and we moved out of that home almost immediately. My mom is a realtor. I grew up in real estate. My mom's been a realtor, oh gosh, maybe 50 years, and she helped us find a house. We qualified for just enough of a home loan. And we looked at a lot of houses, and bless my mom's heart, like I'd walk into a house and be like, nope, this isn't it. And she's like, you didn't even look. I said, it doesn't feel right, Mom. It's got to feel right. And so we found a home that was right at the top of our budget for what we qualified for. Very modest, but cute. And I fell in love with it and felt very called to be to this home. So we had a pre-purchase inspection and no red flags came up, nothing, out of the ordinary. And we moved in. That was in October of 2017. We moved in October 26th. Within 2 months, our 5-year-old dog developed a very sudden neurological disorder. We ended up having to put her down right before Christmas. So not even 2 months in the home. Looking back, she was the first canary in the mine. Of course, we just had no idea. It was just heartbreaking. And then pretty instantly, my health started to change. And like so many people, and I think this is the most difficult part with women, and maybe you can relate to this, but I had just had my third baby, and I was, navigating some postpartum hormones, and I had just moved to my whole family, dealt with the lead poisoning with my daughter. So I attributed all of these things to that. I started experiencing migraines, and that was difficult for me. Only ever migraines when I was pregnant. Not postpartum. And then my ears started to ring intermittently. I had like this ear fullness. And my ears always felt so strange. I was always digging stuff in my ears. Um, and then it was anxiety, but it was anxiety that was not typical of me. And I mean, so bad that I'd go to the grocery store and I would come back just crying, and my husband would be like, "Where are the groceries?" I'm like, "I couldn't do it. I thought the world was going to end." Um, for me, I've never been afraid. I mean, I moved to Hawaii as a young woman and would race motocross and talk to anybody. I've never, been like that. And it was so severe, I actually went to the doctor and for anxiety. And so now looking back, I understand, these things are very typical of toxic exposures, but they really sneak up on you. Within after being in the home for about 2 years, it went from, maybe something's wrong to something is really wrong. Initially, I thought it was autoimmune. My symptoms were very autoimmune-like. And they progressed to, I mean, there's just a laundry list of things, but at my very worst, I was experiencing dementia-like symptoms. I couldn't recall my children's names at times. I would look at my oldest son and, think he was my baby brother. Um, there was one day my husband came home and I needed to say to him, "Did you see the email from the our kiddo's preschool teacher?" And I couldn't find the words. And finally, after a few minutes, I just started crying. And my husband says, "Well, are you trying to ask if I saw the email from, Miss Annette?" And I was like, "Yes." Um, I go to the grocery store, couldn't find the truck, would feel panicked like it was stolen. And so I was very aware that I was losing my mind. I got diagnosed with Lyme disease, I think in the beginning of 2020. And I treated out of pocket with a functional doctor. Oh gosh, I don't even know, to a tune of maybe 20 grand. I don't know. A lot of it went on credit cards and I never got better. And I started saying to him, I've been reading about the Lyme and mold connection, and I think I'm living in mold. Oh, we'll deal with that later. And then finally I said, I know I'm living in mold. Oh, we'll deal with that later. And by the way, it was somebody in Colorado that saved my life. My friend Carrie, we were in some Facebook groups together, and I was out of state attending my best friend's bachelor party. And I have this strange woman in my inbox, and she says, "You're not getting better from Lyme because you're living in mold. You're mold sick." And I
Oh,
said, "Oh, thanks. No, I'm not living in mold. I keep a really clean house. My mom's a realtor. Like, there's no mold in my house." And she was really persistent. And she's like, "I'm really sorry, but I just feel like God's on my shoulder." And anyways, I returned from that trip with kind of that in my ear, and I walked into the house and I was so excited to see my kids and my husband. And within 10 minutes of being home, I looked at my husband and I said, "It's the house." I can't explain how or why. I just, after being out of the home, I knew that it had an impact. So, um, we started digging into it, and we made a lot of mistakes. We found really a lot of mold in our basement, really, really a lot of mold. We had like just this much visible mold, and in fact, there was mold throughout the basement. Um, we were tapped out. We didn't have any money. My husband and I, we have a lot of love. We've never been a family with means. And then when we met, we were just, starting over, both of us. And then we're buying this house. Like, gosh, I hope we can pay the mortgage. And then I got so sick. I didn't work for 2 years. We're paying all of these out-of-pocket expenses. I was looking into getting on disability at the time. So having been in the spot that we were, and we were just like, we're going to throw everything we can at this Lyme treatment, and then I'm going to hit the ground running. I mean, I followed that doctor's protocol and then some, because I was really sick. At one point, I knew what we were up against, and I was suffering, and now I understand that I had brain inflammation, and I knew I needed to get my kids out of here. So at one point, I rewrote my life insurance policy. I tripled the coverage, and then I read the fine print, and I knew exactly the day it would pay out 100%.
oh, Andy.
And so, thank you. So I made a plan, and I did this very quietly. And meanwhile, what I started doing is writing letters. Um, and then I started reading, because I'm a Christian. I have three beautiful kids. I have a husband I love. I love my life. I didn't take that lightly. Um, and so I said, "Well, Andy, if that's what you're going to do, if you're going to leave your children motherless, you better go out fighting." So we moved out to a tent. It's terrible. I don't ever recommend living in a tent with, God, I think the kids were, gosh, 4 and 5, I forget. They were little. And I was so sick. My kidneys started to show signs of failure. And I was out of my mind. And so I started digging into textbooks. I read everything I could on mold remediation, indoor air quality, environmental testing. And I did this for two reasons. Number one, we couldn't afford to hire the professionals. That was not in our wheelhouse. And then also, I was very aware that I was showing dementia-like symptoms, and I knew that Lyme can lead to Alzheimer's and dementia, and so I wanted to exercise my brain, and it was really tough going. Like I would read a sentence and I'd have to read it oh my gosh, sometimes 15 times over, but I persisted. And by the end of the year, I had read so many books. It was astounding. I reached out to professionals like Michael Pinto, wrote him an email at like 2 in the morning from my tent. He responded like 9 hours later, sent me a free textbook, which I read cover to cover. And so that's where my career began. And so I learned a lot. And then when I started talking to mold inspectors and remediators, really quickly, I was like, I said to my husband, I said, I'm talking over these people's heads. And my husband, I love him. He says, "Well, you're really smart, Andy." I said, "Thank you." But I've only been reading a couple weeks and like it's scary. Um, it's really scary being really sick and scared and not being able to turn to a professional. So right away, I identified a great need for education in the space. Some of these professionals I was working with didn't even know what mycotoxins were. And so my reading became a way of advocating for myself. I got better, by the way. We did slowly remediate our home. I'm still in the home that made me sick. So if anybody's listening and feeling helpless and hopeless, this house was a lemon, a huge lemon, and it made me really sick. And I feel really good in this home, and I never stop moving. So please don't ever feel hopeless. There is always hope to be had. So we were about to lose the house because we hadn't paid the mortgage, and I hadn't worked in 2 years, and was just kind of like, what am I going to do? And so I chased down a company, a local inspection and remediation company. I chased them like for 3 months, and the guy said to me, he goes, "You're weird, but you're smart, but I don't know what I'm going to do with you." And so I said, "Listen," I said, "if you don't hire me, I'm going to show up at your doorstep. And I know this is what I want to do." And so he did hire me after 3 months, but we had no idea what I was going to do. I created my role in his organization. It was that of he's like, "Here's a desk. I don't know what you're going to do." So I created my role in that organization, and I was a client advocate, a director of education, and so I would read. I'd read like crazy, and then have conversations with these people and help to guide them. Um, about a year and a half ago, my health started to decline again after multiple remediations. Again, I traveled because that's my way of figuring it out. Sometimes you have to pull yourself out because I thought, well, is this perimenopause? Am I doing too much? Is it Lyme? What is it?
Mhm.
Went away for a week, came back home, went to bed. Um, After the next morning, I said to my husband, I said, "I think it's our bedroom." And so we started sleeping across the hall in the kids' room. I felt different. And we started sleeping out in the camper. And then the longer I was out of my bedroom, I was very confident there was something going on in my bedroom. Undeniable. And it's really strange. It's kind of like flipping a switch. So at the time, I was in the industry, so I had access to all these resources, all these professionals, and they came out, they checked all my boxes for what an inspector, what tools they should be using, all their knowledge. And we did, wall cavity samples, spore trap air samples. We did, use particle counters, very thorough visual inspection. I even got to run a test that wasn't on the market yet, a dust test looking at mycotoxins. Nothing showed an issue. And some of these professionals said, well, maybe it's something else. Maybe it's psychosomatic. And I said, no, I'm pretty confident it's mycotoxins. And my husband believed me because I think maybe at first he was like, this is crazy, because I'm like, we have to live in a tent with our children and we have to rip out the basement. And God bless my husband. He's like, okay. But now he's seen it because I've never been wrong. When I felt this way, there's usually been a source. I'm very fortunate to have that, by the way. So, anyways, the gentleman I was working for, he believed me because after working with me for 3 years, he saw it. I mean, he used to say to me, "I don't know how you do all the things you do in one day. You never stop moving." And then I would get exposed to mold briefly, and it would level me. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, absolutely level me. So he believed me when I said, boss, there's something here. And at the time, we had access to this Respiratory Labs technology. I was the one selling inspections, and we had tested it out. We like did a few, trial runs, and we never got a detect. And we were testing houses that I felt good in and that we had previously remediated. And so, and it was an expensive test. And I'm like, I'm not selling this to people. Like, this is my community. You don't pay me enough to do that. I'm not, selling this to people. But he's like, well, let's run an EMEA, which is this mycotoxin air test. And I said, okay, whatever. Came back off the charts, Tammy. Every mycotoxin it tested for was like in the red off the charts.
Oh my.
So we ended up doing exploratory remediation, which involved a second mortgage. And we left no stone left unturned. So I had a theory that there was mold between the siding and the building envelope. I'd gone to war with a woodpecker, and we had, a hole in our siding right by my bedroom window. And so my theory was is that there was mold behind the siding, and that part of the house is really, really windward. And so, we were going to reside the house and then totally demo our master bedroom and bathroom because, like, how's there not mold in the bathroom? And we were going to leave no stone left unturned. So we did find mold behind the siding near my bedroom window. And then once the siding was off, we discovered that the windows in my master bedroom and bathroom on that side of the house were not original to the home and they weren't flashed. So the
Oh,
the lumber that the window sits on was super moldy. And for any professionals listening, I want to say that wall cavity samples didn't identify that. Thermal imaging didn't pick up any temperature anomalies. Like there's just there was no way of knowing, at least from the inside. And then we also found a saturated, really moldy subfloor in the bathroom that was from an exterior issue, again, that nothing picked up on. So we found it, and I feel really good today. And then I got really excited about that technology, so I chased Respiratory Labs and demanded they hire me, but it took about 12 months. So that's the work I'm doing now. So if you're in, for anybody listening that is working to heal their home or testing their home or spend money on inspections or testing, my biggest message and the biggest thing I've learned the last year is there's limitations. There's always limitations to a non-invasive inspection. There's limitations to every tool. There's limitations to every testing methodology. So listen to your body. When I talk to consulting clients and they're sharing with me their inspection reports, their environmental tests, I'm like, this is great. Okay. And I have a little bit better of an understanding how to interpret those things because I have all this background information. But the best data point for me and the one that has the most impact is how do you feel?
mm,
And I've had so many clients say, well, my wife feels really good. And then she comes back from, vacation or her sister's house and her migraine comes back and there's usually something hidden. So yeah, that's we're still in this house and I feel really good in this home, but it's been a lot.
yeah. And there, I mean, such a journey. Thank you so much for sharing it. There's some things that I picked up. I just want to kind of go back over one
Yeah,
of them.
please. Thanks for letting me like run with it.
Oh
So
my
dive
gosh, totally. Exactly. I feel like when we're given that opportunity just to be able to share like this is what happened to me, it's so powerful for everybody. There's specific things that you brought up that I think are important to highlight. Did you go into mast cell activation? Do you?
I did. Yes, I should state that I still have not seen a mold literate doctor. I don't recommend not seeing a doctor. We have not been able to do that. When I did go back to work, um, my wages were garnished. So I was like getting making very little money, and then wages were garnished for unpaid medical bills.
Mhm.
So I'm not clinically diagnosed with mast cell, but yes, I believe I had mast cell activation, and chronic inflammatory response syndrome. And for me, mold is a huge part of my health story. It's not for everybody, but for me it is.
Yeah.
So,
And there were other factors. You had been diagnosed with Lyme,
yep,
right? You had stress. And I mean, we all have stress in our lives, right?
yep.
That's a given factor,
And,
especially.
and a family history of autoimmune disorders. So I'm confident I have autoimmune disorders, but I don't know which ones.
Yeah.
Um, and so, there's not everybody is affected the same in a household, and that is par for course. And I think that is why environmental issues go undetected. Um, I also wanted to say one more thing. The one of the things that we found in really high levels in our air through the EMEA was aflatoxin. And if you read anything on aflatoxin, you'll see that it is one of the most known potent carcinogens known to man, and it's connected with this liver and lung cancer, this very specific liver and lung cancer. It's maybe not coincidentally how the previous homeowner died. The gentleman was selling his home because his 56-year-old wife was diagnosed with a very aggressive form of this cancer in January. She was dead by June, and we bought the house in October. So my hypersensitivity, so in hypersensitivity, by the way, I don't have a mold allergy. An allergic reaction in your body is a very different process than a hypersensitivity reaction or a toxic exposure. And so that's really, really, really important to understand. A lot of people be like, well, I went and got an allergy test for mold and I'm not allergic to mold. Way different things.
Mm-hmm.
And people that are hypersensitive, it's their this is my toxic bucket. Okay, so I'm full, but imagine this glass is like so full there's a bubble. If
Yeah.
you put a drop in my glass, it's going to spill over. Um, and in my husband, whose glass is half full, it's not affecting him yet. But even once your bucket is full, and so there's a lot that goes into that pre-genetic dispositions, past exposures, gender seems to play a role. Seems to be mostly women and children that see it first, and it can show up very differently. And after we had lived in a tent for 3 months, we saw certain things with the kids fall away. All three of my kids had eczema. And I thought, well, it's hereditary. Never had a skin issue. Bedwetting can be a symptom of toxic exposure in kids, behavioral disorders, ADHD. And I had no skin issues, but I talked to a ton of families that have eczema in their kids. So you start to see things and it will affect people differently. And that can make it confusing because you think, well, the carbon monoxide pretty much everybody's going to react the same with carbon monoxide. It's very acute, but toxic exposures, whether it's glyphosate or mycotoxins or endotoxins, can sneak up on you.
Where does aflatoxin come from?
Oh, uh, the genus Aspergillus, certain species within that genus. I think it might come from the Penicillium genus as well. So very prevalent in our agricultural setting. Aflatoxin, I think, is one that is regulated in the agricultural setting. And really a lot of different molds can produce a number of mycotoxins. So for those of you that are listening, a mycotoxin, so first and foremost, I love fungi. Um, Mold is ubiquitous in nature. We would not be here without mold in our natural world, and that is very true. You should never have any water damage or microbial growth within the building envelope. And I don't care if it's in the crawl space, the attic, behind a wall, wherever. You should not have water damage building materials. And by the way, it's not just mold that is rendered from those things. It's other biological contaminants like gram-negative bacteria. They're endotoxins, actinomycetes, mold. They're mycotoxins. And then all of these things can work synergistically together to create their own toxic compounds. So all of these, assailants party together to create more of an impact. And so, yes, mold is ubiquitous, but at no point should there ever be any active mold growth anywhere in the home. And so, finding it is sometimes difficult because if it's really hidden, some of these traditional um, and foundational tools won't pick it up or testing methodologies. Um, but the mycotoxins are the most health relevant aspect of mold. And so, what mycotoxins are is a secondary metabolite. And what I mean by secondary metabolite is it's something that's rendered from the organism that's not from a life sustaining process. So, forgive my analogy, but um, a primary metabolite is something that comes from a life sustaining process. So, for example, we eat and then we get gassy, right? Because we're and mold is like that too. So when you smell a musty odor, what you're smelling is microbial volatile organic compounds, MVOCs, also known as mold farts. So the
Yep.
mold is eating and it's digesting and creating that. So that's a primary metabolite. A secondary metabolite, it's the mold's defense mechanism. These things are not alive. They're super, 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 super small, and they are, as their name denotes, they are toxins. So if mold feels threatened, whether that's from competing microbes or maybe it's drying out, maybe it's being disturbed because somebody's spraying bleach on it or they're ripping it out, that mold is going to release its weapons. Okay. So just because there's mold doesn't mean there's mycotoxins, and we shouldn't fear every single mold in the world. But it shouldn't be in the space. And it's these mycotoxins. That's what makes people sick.
Hmm.
Mold spores, not toxic, allergenic. Um, but mycotoxins are, they're known carcinogens, neurotoxins, hepatotoxins, nephrotoxins. They've been known to cross the blood-brain barrier. We use them in biowarfare. True story. I've got the textbook on that. So, very relevant and people purchasing homes, starting their families. It's not just our hypersensitive selves that need to be concerned with these things. It's everybody.
Hmm.
I prefer to fill my toxic bucket with more fun things. And so, um, mycotoxins will suppress your immune system. They will dysregulate your immune system. And I believe in my heart of hearts that the previous homeowner was not hypersensitive.
Hmm.
So her alarm bells never went off and it resulted in cancer. And I think that if I had not been hypersensitive and we continued to live here, we would, lead to those other diseases, cancer or dementia, Alzheimer's, MS, ALS, so
Yeah. Yeah. It's phenomenal. The information that you're sharing is so good. And I think that it's really important for people to be able to start wrapping around the understanding that I'm actually interrupting myself. My thought is in this poor woman who lived in this home whose bells didn't go off. There is a chance that her bells did go off and she was gaslit. It's not a big deal. It's just this. You have cancer. You have cancer. There's
right.
no cause. It's genetic, or you know what I'm saying? We have so many people who are, and I talk to them all the time, who are being gaslit, who accept what they're being told as their truth. The
Yes.
I feel like the difference between a lot of us and the people who've just accepted it is that we're not going to accept it and we're going to keep digging until because we know what it feels like to feel good. And
Yeah.
we know we weren't there 6 weeks ago. There's a marked moment that something's happened that causes us to go, wait, hold up. Last week I was fine.
Yep.
2 weeks ago or 2 months ago, or, all of a sudden it dawns on us that this growing bucket that we're carrying all of a sudden has changed our life. And we're not going to be okay with that. So
Right.
thank goodness. Um, yeah, thank
Yeah,
goodness.
it's wild, and I've seen it a lot. I've seen a lot of my good friend Chara, who would be a great guest for this podcast. She went septic. She was in like her kidneys were, I want to say she was like in kidney failure, and then she realized that she was living in a ton of mold, and she's thriving. I mean, she just had surgery on her shoulder, but she's thriving today. And she went back to her urologist and she's like, "Well, do you know about ochratoxin A? That's it's a known to cause kidney failure." And her urologist was like, how come we're not taught about this in school? And it's wild. So we need education and awareness, not just for realtors, not just for inspectors and remediators, but also general contractors, HVAC technicians, and allopathic doctors,
Yeah.
social workers, mental health providers. My anxiety and by the way, kind of like circling back around, because I open up this dialogue and talk about some of these vulnerable topics, many have shared with me that they have felt suicidal in water damaged buildings. And there's actually Dr. Mary accurately has talked about this black mold, black thoughts. So interesting to me, especially being a fungi person, because what does mold do in the world? It's a decomposer, right? It wants you dead so it can do its thing. But and that's why it's so relevant that like these healthcare providers and these doctors are looking at these environmental factors. Because if you're throwing SSRIs at this thing or medications and it's a toxic exposure, it can be profound. So we
Would
need to keep, yeah.
would you talk to us about your healing process?
Yeah. Uh, well, again, we were operating with no resources, so I healed myself with the means I had. So I read every book I could. If a doctor wrote a book about mold, I read it. So my healing was the things that I had access to. Really, really, really a lot of hiking. I'm a mushroom forager, so just being outside a lot, a lot. Also, brain rewiring. I love neuroscience. I've so interesting. So, um, mold mycotoxin can cross the blood-brain barrier and affect your limbic system, which is just a series of structures in the brain associated with sensory input. So, essentially, what it does is it can put our brains into a state of fight or flight. If somebody's trying to kick down your door, you're probably not cleaning the house or making dinner. You're defending your fortress. So, on that thought, if you are in a perpetual state of fight or flight, you're not healing, you're not regenerating, your body's not acting optimally, you cannot detox, you cannot ward off viruses and pathogens. So, addressing your central nervous system when you can do nothing else is so, so, so important. And this isn't like have happy thoughts. It's very much getting different neurons to fire. So that was a large part of my healing, truly. And I continue to do those things. Epsom salt baths, saunas, rebounding. Again, just some of these things that I could do. Some people are going to be like, "What? I can't believe she just said that," but I'm going to go for it. Green coffee enemas. I swear to God, they saved my life, and it was something that I could do. My husband teases me. It's like, "You're making coffee. Which end is that one for?" But if you know, you know, but don't come at
Right.
me.
Totally.
So, and I kind of went at it blindly, and intuitively because I wasn't able to see doctors and look at blood tests and all of these other markers that are so wonderful to have. So I would just like, okay, yep, that feels good. I'm going to keep doing that. Nope. And so it's I think it's helped me to trust my body and heal instinctually, but eventually I would like to see a mold litter provider. It's just we have 3 kids and it's just not in our cards right now.
Yeah, I totally get it. Mine neither. So no, you're definitely not alone in that. And
And
navigating this
yeah,
without somebody who is mold literate can be really scary. It's
it can be
horribly
dangerous. It
overwhelming
can be
and dangerous.
dangerous too. Yes.
Right. And I feel like the one of the things that's very common that I'm noticing is the moment when you're the fighters like we are, the people who are not going to settle, we dig in and it can
Yep.
become a rabbit hole. If you can't emotionally wrap around all the information that's coming at you and be able to prioritize what feels right for you, it just becomes this gray muck pool of hopelessness.
Thanks for bringing that up because every time I do one of these interviews, I'm like, I wish I would have said this. And mold causing brain inflammation and these dementia symptoms. And then it's like, and then on top of it, whether it's on the health or home side, there's all these different varying opinions. Well, I think this urine test is crap, and I think this blood test is better, and this protocol and that protocol. And then on the home side, different ways of diagnosing and healing home and body. And navigating that when you're broke and sick is really, really tough. So, this is what I want to say about that. Think before you spend. Navigating environmental illnesses requires a dual approach because you have to diagnose and heal both your home and your body. It's not just mold. And let's talk about the home for a minute. It's not just mold that impacts your the health of your home. You have to look at proper ventilation, low VOC products, you know, a number of things. And so diagnosing a home, I believe very humbly that there's an order of operations. There's a time and a place for this tool and a time and a place for this test. Just like you go into the doctor and you say, Doc, I don't feel good. They're not going to say, well, let's do an MRI and exploratory surgery. They're going to do a physical exam, look at your medical history, do take your vitals, do a basic blood panel. Sometimes they say, oh, everything looks good. I'm going to send you to this specialist. We're going to order this test. Same with diagnosing your home. Understand the limitations of these things. So if you get a mold inspection and they're using all these tools, they shouldn't be like, there's nothing here. There's nothing here. You just need to dig deeper. But same goes with your health. Don't ever diminish or fresh air. Oh my gosh, fresh air, sunlight, clean air, clean thoughts, and clean food. By the way, that was another thing. I healed myself through food. I juiced every day, ate really, really clean because you want to empty your toxic bucket. So if you are, you know, drinking Mountain Dew and fast food every day, I promise you're not going to get well. So yeah, we put a lot of toxins in our bucket, not just mold. So
Mm. It's not just mold. It's
it's
not.
not impossible. These things, I'm telling you, like if you take anything from this, like I got well and I was so sick I didn't want to be here and we were tapped out. We didn't have any money when we started and I'm still here. I'm still in this house. We're paying a couple mortgages now, but I feel really good.
Yeah.
So
Thank you. Thank
yeah.
you. Thank you for being here. And thank you
Thanks
for
for
doing
like letting
the
me
work.
run wild with it. I
Oh
hope
my gosh.
like
How do you feel today if you, on a scale of like 1 to 10 or 100%, 1 to 100%?
I feel really good today. I mean, my health is, I don't think it will ever be 100%, but I have other stuff going on. But I really don't stop moving. I work full time. I am an advocate in my personal life. I'm writing 2 books. And there was a lot of days I didn't get out of bed before. So I feel really good, but I'm also getting older. So, um, I don't know.
It's not just mold, right? I
No,
mean,
no,
back to it,
it's not, but you can't be well in a sick home. And if you're living in mold and trying to heal from something, and I don't care what it is, whether it's cancer or Lyme or autoimmune, whatever, if you're trying to heal from those things in mold, it's like rebuilding a house that's still on fire. You
Hmm.
cannot be well in a sick home. And it doesn't matter what supplements you take, what you're eating. If the air you breathe is not well, then you will not be well.
Yeah. You cannot be well in a sick home.
Um,
Yeah. Uh, yeah. This is good. Thank you.
yeah. Thanks for letting me I don't know, be here. So,
Oh gosh, yeah. What's in reflection, one of the lessons that you learned that you would like to give to those watching this?
uh, think before you spend or make big decisions. I've seen people get sick in a home and that's when their bucket was full and then walk away from that home. And then they are left, realizing that there is no perfect home. And finding once you're hypersensitive, it's really hard finding a safe home. So think before you spend, and think before you make a big decision like that. What's right for others might not be right for you. Vet your professionals very well. Um, and just be careful of how you're spending your resources. This isn't like a one and done. You don't, fight this and then put it in your review mirror. This is a lifetime thing. So be careful with your dollars.
Yeah, brilliant. My friend, thank you so much. It is my heart to have you here. And
Thank you
I'm
for
so
the
glad.
opportunity.
Absolutely. If people want to get a hold of you, how are they going to find you?
Um, my heart is in Respirare Labs right now. So Respirare, it's Italian by the way. So they can reach me at Andrea at respirarelabs.com. If it's more personal, you can reach out to me through Align Mold Consulting. My email and all that information is on the website, which is at alignmoldconsulting.com. Um, I'm everywhere. So if I can help be a friend, be a sounding board, if you want to talk science with me, I'm always open. So
I love that.
yeah.
We hear it's your love language.